What's going on, everybody? It is your boy Zamboni. I'm a musician and astrologer, and it is time to talk about the astrology of the week ahead. As always, I thank you so very much for being here. Thank you for rocking with me day after day, week after week. Super appreciate all y'all who tune in so regularly. Appreciate you. If you want to go check out ZamboniFunk.com, you can get an astrology reading there. You can get the fundamentals course there. That begins on Wednesday. I'm pretty excited about that. That's going to be a fun time. That'll be my first time teaching how to do astrology, how to read astrology. This is a really good course for somebody who doesn't know anything, but who wants to get to a point where you can read a wheel chart at the end of it. It is super useful, in my opinion. If you want to check out why I think it's so useful, you can check out the podcast that I do. It's called What is the Time? Sometimes it's called What If Magic Were Real? We've got a next episode probably coming out tomorrow where me and DB talk about the nature of the cosmos and how astrology showed me that shape is kind of at the root of everything. It's pretty rad. If you want to hear about that sort of thing, you can check it out at ZamboniFunk.com, or you can come to the fundamentals course on Wednesday. Looking forward to it. It's going to be so much fun. With that said, let's talk about the astrology of the week ahead. This week, all right, so this week we've got a lot of things that are sort of shifting and changing this week, but at this point, I'm at a point where I'm like, it's good if there's no big fights going on. There's no like major aspects really taking place this week. Folks are kind of shifting. So on the one hand, we've got Mercury and Venus moving out of Gemini and into Cancer. So although it is so sad that we have to see Mercury leaving Gemini because Gemini is Mercury's home. Mercury is very good there in Gemini, very good at doing the Mercury things, at communicating and weaving a tale or a narrative, a story of some sort, or dealing with math and like figuring out what all of it means and like all of the pieces, what all the pieces are, and then sort of like working on some kind of synthesis or dissection. Mercury in Gemini is really good at like parsing, figuring out what is actually happening through here and all this sort of stuff. Love to see Mercury in that position. And so it's a little bit sad that we're going to see Mercury moving out of Gemini. But as soon as Mercury moves out of Gemini and into Cancer, then we're also going to see a conjunction to Venus. So Venus is actually going to move out of Gemini and into Cancer at the same moment. And so they both conjoin at 0 degrees of Cancer. That's cute. It's nice to see. I like Mercury and Venus together. I think that this is, there's something here that speaks to maybe beautiful speech in some kind of way. Like poetry looks really good here, especially since we can see that Mercury moving into a water sign especially is very good for, it's less good for all the analysis that I just described, but it's much better for beauty and poetry and verse and all of this kind of stuff. Mercury is really good in a water sign for this kind of more impressionistic art style, right? So I think that looks really cute. And then what we're also going to see here is Mercury is like quick this week. Mercury is moving. And so we're also going to see Mercury making a sextile to Mars in Taurus. This is so a sextile, that's like a nice little complementary aspect, right? We've got Taurus, which is an earth sign, and Cancer, which is a water sign. And so there's a sense of like the water nourishing the earth and making something really possible here, right? So I think that that's real cute. I think it's a strong possibility that Mars in Taurus is going to motivate Mercury into doing some of the like Mercury things, like working out how we actually feel about things, especially when it comes to Cancer stuff. It's like, okay, I've got big feelings in my heart, and maybe I'm like concerned, I'm like sensitive in some kind of way. To have Mercury and Mars here working together around that looks like a good time for working through how I actually feel about things. Oh, I feel this kind of way. What am I actually feeling? What am I responding to, this kind of thing? One of the things that we talked about in this podcast that is going to probably come out tomorrow is the nature of divination, like using astrology or tarot or geomancy if you're Brian. using those things for as a means of looking inside oneself and like getting to your own feelings about how things are going for you. So this looks like a really good week for, especially, you know, if we're looking at cards or images or something like this, then there's like a lot to do that is very much impressionistic, that's not super analytical, it's not going to be like a prosaic, like here's the data points and here's the conclusion made from that, like some kind of like scientific journal or something like that. It's a different style of thinking about things, and it's probably a pretty good week to think about epistemology as well, the ways that we go about knowing things. So there's a lot here that I think is really cute and worth thinking with, worth like sinking into a little bit. I think that it's there's something like, yeah, there's something cute about that. A little later, the sun is going to move into Cancer. And so again, same sort of situation. So, well, like before that, earlier on in the week, then we're going to see the sun at the end of Gemini making a square to Neptune. Looks confusing, you know, like it's the same Neptune stuff that I always talk about. A square to Neptune is going to like dissolve your boundaries and borders. The sun in Gemini wants to do a Sun in Gemini wants to like dissect the things and get into the analysis and whatever, and then a square to Neptune is just going to be like, is going to confound everything. Like, is it true? Is it what you think it really is? And all that sort of stuff. As the sun moves into Cancer, then that is the summer solstice. So we're going to begin the summer season. That looks, you know, that's our longest day of the year as well as the shortest night. And so we're going to see some major like sort of shifting going on as far as like just the basics around, is it light and is it dark and this sort of stuff. This is also a time of year where things are moving in a pretty like we're moving from this side over to that side. And so like there's a little bit of motion that might want to shift us in a new direction. Around the same time as that, then we've got the moon in Capricorn as well. So we're going to see a full moon in Capricorn. And so full moon in Capricorn is going to make a nice little trine to Mars and Taurus, and a little, you know, the sextile to Saturn, who rules the moon, is pretty wide, but we'll take it on a like whole sign kind of basis, you know. So there is this between, all right, so between the moon in Capricorn, whatever we think about the moon in Capricorn, then we're going to be thinking about things that are like a little bit rugged, that you might not necessarily like too much, but that are real and worth digging into, worth like navigating in some kind of way. Then when I think about Capricorn, I think about that as being very rugged terrain. Like I think about it as, I think about the goat a lot of times, right? Because it's a sign that's ruled by Capricorn, or Capricorn is a sign that is ruled by Saturn, who is often associated with the goat. And so whenever we think about goats, they're like they want to climb things and they don't give a shit about rugged terrain. Like you can put a goat on a sheer rock face and they're like down for that shit. They'll also eat a tire or whatever you put in front of them. You know what I mean? Like very rugged and willing to deal with whatever kind of like an avalanche goes down. Goats love that shit. Like give me a challenge to navigate, right? So a full moon in Capricorn is likely to deal with this kind of jagged edged kind of stuff out here. But at the same time as that, while we've got this Mercury-Venus conjunction in Cancer, where we're going to be thinking about like, okay, well, how do I feel and what's really going on here? And then we've also got the sun moving out of this square to Neptune. And by the time we get to the full moon, then we're still basically in orb of that square to Neptune, even though it's out of sign. Then there are these questions around what is real. This looks like a really good week for digging into what we actually think is real and how we actually feel about the things, especially since this is not one of those weeks where it's like the sky is falling. You know what I mean? Like everything is like breaking around us and there's eclipses and there's a thing, right? It's not this sort of week. So because things are moving a little, there's less sort of tension and release in the system and more kind of like everybody moving to their respective corners, right? Rather than like all year up to this point, it's been like everybody in the one spot, everybody in Capricorn, everybody in Aquarius, everybody in Pisces, everybody in Aries, everybody in Taurus, everybody in Gemini. Now Jupiter is going to hang out there in Gemini, just going to be there. And so these folks moving into Cancer, there's only three. There's Sun, Mercury, Venus moving into Cancer, and they've kind of like left a bunch of other planets behind them. And so there's much more of a spread here. So there's less of this kind of intensity. And because there's less of this straight crazy intensity, like Mars is moving away from the square to Pluto, for example, because of that, there might be a little bit of a place to breathe and a time to figure out like where we are in time and what it all really matters. Happy Father's Day. I forgot to say that at the beginning. Appreciate all y'all. Thank you so much for being here. Check out